Now, one thing that people, when they're first starting to write email copy, struggle with sometimes is capturing the voice of a different person, of a different client, a different business owner, influencer, whatever the case may be, right? Because not everyone has a different voice. Everyone has different phrases they use. Everyone focuses on different things with their language. So how can you capture the voice of a client? Now, in certain situations, you're just going to be really, really lucky. So I did I did go through some of Steve Weatherford's stuff before I started writing as Steve, but in many, many ways, Steve and I have very, very similar personalities and mindsets. So I kind of naturally got to write like him right off the bat. Just immediately, it's like we were the same person. But there are other clients I had where it took a while. It took sometimes a matter of months to actually get that client's voice down, right? But I learned some valuable lessons in those experiences. That's what we're going to go through now. How do you capture the voice of a client? Well, the goal obviously is to learn to write in that client's voice so that the emails sound like them, right? Because you are writing as another person. So the first way to do that is to go through old emails of theirs, right? Now, it's not always the case that their prior email copywriters always capture their voice, but especially if emails were written by the business owner, the influencer, the client themselves, then definitely go through old emails, look for language patterns, look for the kind of words that they use, the phrases that they use, the things that they talk about, how they talk about those things, and just start to familiarize yourself with their voice, how they speak, how they sound. Another really great way that I highly, highly, highly recommend is to go through their social media content, both posts and stories. You are going to get more from that than just about anything else, because for the most part, people probably write their own social media posts more or less, but they're definitely them being themselves in their Instagram stories, in their Facebook stories, right? So especially the stories, like that's very clearly that person, how they act, how they sound, what lights them up, what kinds of things they focus on, what language patterns they use. So definitely go through that social media content. Another thing that can be really helpful is to find video interviews of them, whether it's videos on YouTube, IGTV, Facebook videos, Facebook Lives, any other sources where you can find videos of that client. Do everything that we just talked about with those videos as well. Now, one thing that I didn't mention is, well, I kind of mentioned it, is you want to go through these language patterns, the words and phrases they use, certain expressions, but when you hear those, when you're going through their old content, whether it's social media content, interviews, emails, doesn't matter, write those down and create a little checklist or database for yourself of the particular words they use, the particular phrases they use, the things they say, what lights them up, what kind of reactions they have, right? So that you can then kind of create this running. You don't always need to do this, but it's definitely a good idea, especially when you're starting out. Create this like running list or database of all of these different expressions and things that, and phrases and words that really, really speak, for lack of a better phrasing, speak to the client's voice, right? And the things that they say and the way they communicate. Another thing you can do, as Tyler mentioned this, so you ideally should have at least a 10 to 15 minute call with the client once a week. It'll probably end up being more than that. And you're going to have calls to go over the promotional calendar and the email program itself and how emails are performing. But you should have like a 10 to 15 minute call once a week. At the very least, it's an email, but ideally it's a 10 to 15 minute call where, like Tyler said, you go over, what they've done and what they did in the past week and what they have coming up this next week, so you can mine for stories and content. And ask them if you have their permission, and if you do, ask them if you can record some of these calls that you have together One, so that you can make sure you have all of the stories and the details of them down, right? Because your clients are probably really busy. They don't have a lot of time. You may not be able to write down what they say as quickly as they say it and go through it. So you want to make sure that's recorded, as long as you have their permission. But in those calls, guess who's going to be speaking to you with their own voice? The client. So you can use those calls as well to mine for language patterns, phrases, words that the client uses, and you can add that to your collection as well. And with some clients, like I said, with some clients it happens really naturally. You can capture their voice right off the bat. Some it'll take a week or two. Some it might take longer. But if you go through this process, you're going to be able to much more effectively capture the client's voice than if you didn't do any of the things that we just talked about.
And one thing to add, beyond just capturing the voice itself, simply from the perspective of how do I sound more like them, if you can also write down things that, let's say it's like the name of their dog, right? Or their kids' names, or their significant other's names, or one of their best friends, someone that's a regular on their YouTube channel. These are things that aren't necessarily about their voice, but they're things that they're regularly going to be talking about. So simply being able to say at the end of the email, off to go take Turbo for a walk, their dog, then that does give this feeling of you're writing in their voice. You are writing as them because you have these things ready to go. So there's definitely the voice component and just the style of it, but also having these things that are, people, pets, anything else that's important in their lives that you can refer to. That's going to add.
Yeah. And within that, just to piggyback off of what Tyler just said, nicknames are really, so like Steve, for instance, referred to his wife as Mama a lot. Her name's Laura, but he'd call her Mama because he's in front of his kids all the time, right? So there'd be times when I would be writing as Steve and I would refer to Laura as Mama because that's what Steve would do in a regular conversation when he's just kind of hanging out with people that he's comfortable with, right? So adding nicknames into the equation of everything that Tyler just said, all of those are pieces of the puzzle that make up the client's voice.
And there you have it, how to capture the voice of your clients.